Well, here we are working on episode 151, the ignoring of mental illness. This is an unofficial appellate court hearing for the public. The disregard of the mentally disturbed citizens throughout court systems is universally ignored. It is time the judicial systems throughout the world pay more attention to the mental problems that are infecting the world and the cause of many random shootings, bombings, and other atrocities. I don't feel it's necessary to take up a lot of time going through all the senseless shootings, the ones in schools, theaters, malls, and etc. Most people are aware of them. But they all seem to have one common denominator: perpetrators suffering from some kind of mental illness. There has always been mental illness, but it appears as though the percentage of humans that suffer such a state has grown, with no sign of it decreasing. I would suspect that drugs play a large part of the increase. Now, in both Superior Court cases against me, Joanne Kemper, without giving permission, I should say, to her daughter, Karla Mauger, who petitioned the courts with a vulnerable adult protection order against me. Later on, Reese Minor filed a protective order against him. All made up with lies, wishful thinkings, fantasies, nothing factual. The decisions of Judge Nancy Ratsinas and Commissioner Jill Sasser were influenced by the testimony of individuals that had a history of mental issues. Exactly what issues caused both Karla Mauger and Reese Minor to seek therapy I don't know. However, their testimonies in these trials would suggest they could be suffering from the same illness as Karla's father and Reese's grandfather, and that was schizophrenic paranoia. After several years of being diagnosed as a person suffering from schizophrenic paranoia, Carlos Kemper committed suicide. Now, the reason given by the family was he was diagnosed as having cancer and didn't want to go through the treatment. However, it's impossible to know the true reason, as there was no note, no conversation hinting of such a thing. Now, according to Joanne Kemper, Carl, as he was known, felt that there was some unknown person who was out to kill him and his family. From time to time, he would be admitted to a mental facility, but in a short period of time, he'd just check himself out. Quite often, Joanne Kemper would have to get up in the middle of the night and take her husband to a motel to get away from this fictitious assassin. Schizophrenia is a complex mental health condition with a significant hereditary component. Now, in Karla Mauger's VAPO charge against me, She stated that she feared for her mother's life and that I might end up shooting her. Now, anyone can check my records. I have no history of shooting anybody or even threatening to shoot somebody. I at one time had a federal firearms license. I could sell guns. I had a carrying permit. Both expired now, but it was my choice. They weren't taken from me. In the case of Reese Minor, I believe it is a follow-up from his mother's charges against me and designed to keep me away from visiting Joanne Kemper. The fact that attorney Grant Brower filed both briefs could indicate a conspiracy to keep Joanne and I apart. In Reese Minor's suit against me, he stated that he feared for his life and his well-being and was scared that I would either shoot him or beat him up. Do you see the pattern? Carlos Kemper had mentally invented a boogeyman in the attic who he feared was going to shoot him. His daughter and grandson both brought up fears that I was the boogeyman who was going to shoot them. The judge in this case used a stretch of the imagination and sided with mentally disturbed. Now, the judge could be given a pass simply because my attorney would not bring out the mental issues, and I was never given the opportunity to present them. In another note, the judge ruled at one point that I was guilty of overprotecting Joanne Kemper. I don't even know what that means. And then on another ruling, she prohibited me from using my influence on Joanne Kemper. Now, we all know there's such a thing as good influence, as in being a Christian. Since I do not make any secret in the fact that I am a Christian, her ruling could very well be a form of persecution. Through the use of an oxymoron, she came to her conclusions. Now here's a list of the Constitution rights that the Clark County judicial system paid no heed to when it come to me and Joanne. Article 14 of the Constitution: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make any or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive a person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Not to deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. In several decisions, the Supreme Court recognized the right to marry as a fundamental right protected by due process clause. Violation of the Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment of the United States protects us against unreasonable search and seizures, including unlawful detention, and requires warrants based on public cause. Unlawful detention, also known as false imprisonment, occurs when someone is intentionally confined without legal justification or consent, violating the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable seizures. The courts will, I'm sure, attempt to show justification due to the fact that Joanne Kemper is suffering from dementia. But let the courts explain how. When the dementia was in its infant stages, that isolation was a good thing. When research tells us that isolation helps create dementia. So if it's able to create it, then it can also accelerate it. And there we stand. Joanne Kemper and Ken Mosier had planned on getting married while Joanne was still mentally capable of making such a decision. This was even acknowledged in the court records that was presided over by Nancy Ritzenes. Over 3 years, Judge Ritzenes has kept Joanne Kemper and Ken Mosier from getting married. For over 3 years, Judge Ritzenes, with the aid of Commissioner Jill Sasser, has kept Joanne Kemper in a state of illegal imprisonment, without physical contact with the one person on earth that shares equal love with her. That would be me. They're going to say her daughter's there. There was never mutual love between Joanne Kemper and Carla Mager. Love is a two-way street, and Joanne Kemper no doubt loves Carla. But Carla's love is vocal only and not by any deeds. But the courts allow us to have phone calls, but they make that as difficult as possible. They have blocked my number on her home phone. I have left with her several cell phones, and they have relieved her of those cell phones. Experts will tell you that the worst decision that can be made is to make changes in the life of a dementia patient. Isn't taking the love of her life a major change? Joanne and I get to pray every day, and I pray for these people that keep us apart.
Do you ever get discouraged when everything goes wrong? Do you ever feel like quitting when the road is rough and long? Do you ever think the devil has been reading your mail when everything you try to do always seems to fail? Well, I do, yes I do too. I've been just as lonely, I've been just like you. So don't ever think you're all alone when it comes to feeling blue. 'Cause I do, yes I do too. your grief is hard to bear, do you ever think that sometimes you get more than your share of trouble and misfortune that's always on your trail? And fate has bound you to a cross, and they're driving in the nails. Well, I do, yes I do too. I've been just as lonely, I've been just like you. So don't ever think you're all alone when it comes to feeling blue. 'Cause I do, yes I do too. Yes I do, you know I do too.